So, hello and welcome. This is Erica Glessing, and I am the host of the Happiness Telesummit. And I have with me a fabulous author, Mr. Keith Grossman. Welcome, Keith.
Hey, how are you, Erica? Thanks.
And what part of the country are you in?
I am in Southwest Florida.
Oh, okay. That's the dolphins in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I
So,
grew up in Miami, so, as a Dolphins fan.
so is it nice there today? I'm
It,
guessing.
it is. I think winter has now retreated because the humidity is starting to come back,
Okay.
but it has
um,
been beautiful.
So tell me a little bit about you, Keith. You have kind of an interesting background, and then kind of how that played into your chapter in this beautiful book we just released.
Okay, absolutely. Well, I am an attorney and a mediator. I've been practicing law for almost 30 years now, and I've been mediating for probably close to 25 of those years. And in my practice of law and in my practice of mediation, I became more and more interested in how to resolve disputes outside of the court system and managing conflict without resorting to litigation and those sort of things.
Mm.
And within my law practice, which is basically a family law and divorce practice, I started because I also had opportunities to do training and to do college professor work as an adjunct or as a full-time professor. So with that teaching background also, I started thinking about how can I help my clients in a more teachable manner to
Right.
handle the conflict in their cases, because there's even in the best, most cooperative cases, there's still challenges. And so I wanted to be able to help my clients expect that those challenges were going to be there and to help them understand how they could manage and work through those. And so through the process of creating those concepts and that material to work with my clients, I realized that work actually can be effective for the workplace as well. It really applies to all areas of life. So from that, I started working with business people and doing training and facilitation type work with them whenever there was conflict or just a desire to have training to manage conflict within a workplace environment. And one of the core concepts, there's a number of core concepts when you're talking about managing conflict and resolving conflict. One of the things has to do with the situation that surrounds judgment, making judgment of
Mm.
other people. Because
Okay.
a lot of times, and that was a real attraction for me in regards to the book, because I saw that connection to the type of work that I do. A lot of
Mm.
people find themselves in conflict because they are in a relationship with somebody, and I'm not talking about a loving personal relationship like a marriage or something, but just with everybody that they have some sort of relationship that they work with them, they're friends with them, whatever it may be. And we make certain judgments about people that do things differently than the way we do it. And one of the things I always have to talk about in my training is that because somebody does something different, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that they're different. And
Thank you. I love that. I wanted to real quickly. We're going to talk a little bit more about the chapter. Tell me the name of your other. You have some other books that you've done. So tell me just a quick. Is it Peace Chest? Something around.
yeah, well, so when I started putting together the ideas of working with my client and then developing that further to work with businesses, I started calling the whole kind of concept of conflict management this idea of developing your peace chest. And the,
Uh-huh.
where I derive that from is that in medieval times, the kings would have a war chest. And the purpose of the war chest was for them to keep their money and those types of things in a chest, so that when there was a war, because it wasn't a matter if there was going to be a war, it was a matter of when there was going to be a war, they needed to have the financial ability to fund the war. And the kings didn't want to lose a war because they didn't have the ability to fund paying for the supplies, the
Oh.
ammunition, and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have a war chest specifically set aside for that purpose. And so I started thinking about, well, rather than always just preparing for war, what do people do to prepare for peace? So when they find themselves in a conflict, what kind of skills have they prepared and developed within themselves to turn it into a peaceful resolution rather than jumping right into going into
Great.
war?
And I think that I kind of wanted that backdrop, because I think that body of work that you've done in that, building those books and building those skills and those abilities to get through conflict, to me kind of led right into your chapter as far as navigating when someone thinks differently than you. And you talk about it in your book a little bit, about a story when you were leaving a leadership role and handing it off to someone, and then what happened in that handoff. That was really interesting.
Yeah, it was a situation where I had been in a role of president, and I'd put a lot of time and effort and energy into the work that I was doing as a volunteer for the organization. And this has actually occurred to me on a few occasions, because I've been president of a few organizations, and I found the situation consistently to be the same. And so when it was my time to move on and no longer be in the president role, I was trying to, prior to that, be very mindful of how can I set the next person up for success and train them and do things with them and those sort of things. But when they moved into the role of president, they would do things the way that they felt it was appropriate. And we may have disagreement as far as what that should look like and what should happen and what should be done, and how to communicate with the other volunteers and how to delegate to the other volunteers and what were the important things to stay on top of and those sort of things. And I found myself getting judgmental because they were not putting the same value on the things that I had put value on when I was in their role. And I was struggling with that. I was trying to help them to see it my way, because I thought that my way was the best way.
The right way.
The right way, yeah.
Yeah. And what if we didn't have to be right?
Well, and it wasn't, and where I was struggling with is that in most of my life, I am, because of who I am and because of my training as a mediator and the training that I do teaching conflict management and those sort of things, it wasn't really an ego thing for me that I had to be right. And that was part of where my struggle was, because it wasn't about the ego, and it wasn't me having to say to myself, hey, put your ego in check. It was really for me about that I had spent a lot of time putting it in place for the benefit of the overall organization, and why did they see it a different way. And so I had to accept the fact that maybe my way actually was the right way, but they had to learn that themselves. If they didn't just immediately or over time by my efforts agree with me, then I had to let it go, and I had to let them decide either eventually that my way was the right way, or maybe I would learn that their right way was okay because they had a different skill set, because the timing that they were doing was different than the timing. All sorts of variables go into that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was taking personal offense to it. It was more, at least I wasn't viewing it that way. I wasn't viewing it as, I was being personally offended. I was just viewing it as, I took some lessons and took some hard knocks that I think you can benefit from, and I'm trying to make this easier for you. And I had to accept the fact that people don't necessarily, understand that, and maybe I just was wrong, because we're different people, and that's okay. So
it's more like, what I see it as, it's more like when you look at a globe, and if you're just looking at your piece, you might say, all land has water adjacent to it.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm at the tip of Florida. Look, all land has water adjacent to. I mean, we know now that isn't true, but you could say, I'm looking right here. I'm standing here. I can see the ocean.
Right.
You can't tell me I'm wrong. Now you take someone else, they're in the middle of Colorado, and they're like, all land has mountains adjacent to it. You can't tell me I'm wrong. I'm standing here. Right. I'm telling you, this is my experience. Blah blah blah. And you could have 1,000 different ways of looking, and all of them are right. None of them are wrong. And then there's always something else. It's like there's always something else. And so I love that. I love that in your chapter that you're kind of pointing out all the different points of views and to kind of shift out of being so polarized in them. So that was really fun.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and so to take it to the next step, when I got to the point where, and it didn't take very long to get there, but when I got to the point where I just said, you know what, whatever will be, will be. I'm here for them, and also rather than being proactive in trying to convince them that I'm right, I can be proactive in supporting them in whatever they decide to do, and helping them make it a success, because ultimately we share the same goal, which is what is best for the organization.
Nice.
So if this is the path that they want to go down, what can I do to support and promote that path instead of being an obstacle by telling them they're doing it wrong?
Right.
And if we get in the middle of that path and they turn to me and say, wow, we should have done it your way, I don't have to say to them, okay, I told you so. I can say to them, okay, what do we need to do to work together now to kind of get back on a different path then, more aligned with what you're seeing now, which may be exactly the same as what I was telling you, or may be a combination of what we've been trying and what I was telling you. But, how can we work together to get back on that path? And so it was a focus of what is good for the overall organization, and recognizing that that is ultimately the shared goal that we have, and not worrying about there's only one path to get there.
I love it. Thank you so much, Keith. Tell us where we can reach you, and tell us the name of your book on Amazon, one of your books on Amazon that we can go get ourselves.
Well, I have two books that are on Kindle related to the conflict management work, and one is called What is a Peace Chest, and the other one is called How to Build Your Peace Chest.
Great.
So they're both available on Kindle, and where I can be reached is at, I have a couple of different websites. The two main ones are keithshares.com and attorneygrossman.com.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.